What up, folks? Once again, we have another mass casualty event. So, as folks begin filtering in here, we're going to be talking about what appears to be a mag dump at a Virginia Walmart, taking at least the lives of 5 innocents before the assailant turned the firearm on himself. This is happening today, so this is another current event. As you may know, we discussed the LGBT event in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I believe it was this weekend. And now here we are talking about what is taking place in Virginia, where someone looks like a manager, a team leader, did a mag dump on his employees, taking the lives of 5. So the question we're asking today is, should American employees, no matter where you work at, should you have the right to carry a firearm? No matter where you're working, what you're doing for a living, whether you are a nurse in a hospital or an associate at Walmart, should you just simply have the right to carry your firearm everywhere you go? Because the belief is that you should have the right to protect yourself. And since this stuff is happening everywhere now, you never know where it's going to go. It used to be where folks who wanted to do something deranged did it in a respectable manner. They went to the post office and took out people. Now they're doing it every damn where. It used to just be respectably in the post office, which is why you heard it being referred to as going postal. Now you can't go to the supermarket. You can't go to church. You cannot ride the subway home from work without worrying about somebody showing up and deciding to empty their weapon. So that's what we're asking. Should you just simply be allowed to carry a firearm anywhere you go in this country? Because you can literally be a victim of a mass casualty event anywhere you go in this country. It's literally happening everywhere. There have actually been a few fools that have went into police stations and tried to do this stuff. There was a guy who went into a police station in Detroit, Michigan a few years ago and decided to start taking out police officers. So, should you just be allowed to carry everywhere you go? Would you feel safer as an American citizen navigating through public if you knew everywhere you were, the people were armed? Whether, like I said, whether you're in the supermarket, whether you're getting on a subway train, maybe the bus driver driving your child home from school, everybody is packing. Like literally, everybody's going on vacation. Every single person you meet is packing. Do you believe society would be safer that way? Make no mistake about it, that's kind of where we're headed now. We could talk about the liberals and, tough gun laws in places like Chicago, New York, and Los Angeles. But if you look at the gun laws in this country over the last decade or so, it has become steadily easier and easier and easier to get a firearm. So we are heading in that direction that it is going to be potentially a situation where everybody, everywhere you go, is armed. So how would you feel about that? Because that does look like where we're headed. So look it in the comments. Japan is strict, no crime. Be the goat. I'm going to assume there's the idea that Japan has no crime is not true, but no gun crimes are exceptionally rare in Japan. I believe there was a former prime minister of Japan that was assassinated earlier this year, and he literally was the second person that died of gun deaths or something like that in Japan in months, if not years. So gun deaths in Japan are virtually unheard of because it is just that difficult to obtain a gun. Looking in the comments, hell no. People are too stupid. They would shoot for anything. Well, but that is what is happening now. They're doing exactly that. Let me turn up my brightness on my device. That's exactly what they're doing now. Is people being shot everywhere for anything. But would you feel safer if you knew that if someone did pull out a firearm and tried to commit a mass casualty event, everyone else in the building is potentially packing. Walmart, by the way, certainly a Walmart in Virginia where this happened today. Walmart is a place where any customer can generally carry a firearm. There are folks who carry in Walmarts all the time. Hell, I've done it. You walk in Walmart, if you're carrying concealed, there's no law saying you cannot carry in a Walmart. So it should be shocking that there are a lot of mass casualty events that take place in Walmart. The one in El Paso, for instance, you had 20 Hispanics where the guy literally drove 600 plus miles to find a Walmart that would be loaded with enough Hispanics to make a statement, and he took out 20 of them in El Paso. So, and that's in Texas, by the way. So clearly, when folks say that, gun-free zones are what promotes this stuff, a Walmart in El Paso is not a gun-free zone. Yet it happened anyway. And that's one of the bigger mass casualty events. In fact, some of the worst mass casualty events in this country have happened in zones where you could carry a gun, such as Las Vegas and Mandalay Bay. That's not stopping you from carrying a gun there, or the shooting at the Batman movie in Colorado. I think it was in Aurora, Colorado, where the guy walked in the dark night and shot. You can carry a firearm there. So the idea that gun-free zones are what's causing this, it sure doesn't seem to measure up to why it's happening in zones where you can carry firearms so often. Looking in the comments. And by the way, folks, this is a MAGA-free, or better, I'm about to say a gun-free zone. This is a MAGA-friendly program. That is why you often will see the MAGA hat. So MAGA are my preferred guests. I make it clear I do not ban, block, or censor anyone for their comments. I'll give you plenty of time in the box. Regardless of whether we agree or disagree, that doesn't mean a damn thing. Come on in, state your point, and we'll talk it out. But I'm asking that question. Would you feel better if you could carry a firearm at work? Should we just allow Americans who are out working every day to carry firearms? I'm looking at a construction crew sitting across from me right now. They're pouring cement. Should they all be allowed to open carry or carry concealed? Like I said, if you're in Walmart, you're asking an associate for help for something, they reach over to grab a product for you or scan something for you, and you look down and you notice that you can see a rifle or a pistol on them. Would that make you feel safer if everywhere you went, Americans were armed? Because we clearly appear to be headed that way. Looking at the comments, hand cart in the back. Okay, fair enough. We aren't cowboys. Depends on who you ask there, Johnny, Ohio. Depends on who you ask. We are certainly heading in that direction. More and more places you go, folks want to carry fire. What about in court? Would you be okay with that? Sitting in court, waiting to hear your case, waiting to pay your speeding ticket? All of the patrons, they're all carrying. What about in court? Like I said, what about in hospitals? There have been mass casualty events in hospitals. You go in there to get some labs done, or you've been injured, you're laying in bed and the nurse walks in and you notice she got a pistol on her hip. What about in hospitals? Would you be okay with that? Because all of these places are falling victim to assailants deciding to take lives there. It's happening everywhere. I don't know anywhere nowadays, churches, wherever you go, I don't know anywhere that's safe. Now in the comments, once, twice, thrice says, take guns away, which is going to lead to the obvious counter statement. Do you believe America would be safer if they banned guns? I'm talking Japan. I'm talking Australia. Do you believe America would be a safer country if we made a significant effort to completely outlaw guns? And when I say outlaw guns, I'm not talking about the Chicago shit that you guys are going to bring up. Such as, well, look at the gun laws in Chicago. They're tough, but there's crime. It doesn't work that way. The way it has to work is federal. If you have a gun-free zone, it has to be set up similar to a quarantined area, meaning that when you come into this area that has tough gun laws, you will be searched. And you cannot get into this area without being checked, such as Japan. If you fly to Japan, which is an international trip, Well, you're obviously subject to be searched and have your things patted down during customs. When you come through the airport or any port that you get into the country, they're going to check you. So the whole area of Japan is essentially quarantined. Whereas Chicago, which generally used to have tough gun laws, they don't now, but Chicago used to have tough gun laws. Well, there's nobody searching you if you leave Chicago and go to Hammond, Indiana or Gary, Indiana. I know this because I used to live there for 30 plus years. You could easily drive across the border, go to a gun show or just simply someone you know, purchase what you need and drive back in Chicago. So even though Chicago has tough gun laws, it's not a quarantined area. So anybody can leave the area, get what they want and come back. You can't do that in Japan or Australia or New Zealand or some of these places with tough gun laws. The only way gun laws are going to have any effect is they have to be federal. You got to make sure people cannot come back in the area without being searched after coming from a gun-friendly area. And that's why gun laws in America do not work, because you can have a tough gun law in Los Angeles, but if I can drive across the border to Arizona or Nevada and get what I need and nobody's going to search me when I come back into California, then the laws in California are useless. That's not how it works in these countries that have tough gun laws. You can't get back in. If they say that they have tough gun laws, when you come back into that country and they see your passport and they know where the hell you've been, they're going to scrutinize your shit. That's why gun laws work in those areas and it does not work in the United States. Looking at the box, we'll go straight to the box. Bionic teeth. We're asking the question. Good afternoon, Bionic Man. If TikTok, there you go. Good afternoon. So what do you think? You think they should allow just generally all employees in America, no matter where you're at, just allow you to carry a firearm?
No, I think it'd be the wild, wild west out there. I mean, I think it would be insanity.
So how can you defend yourself then? If you go to Walmart, for instance, where a lot of these, I mean, there's a lot of mayhem that happens in Walmart. We know that there's memes, there's videos, YouTube, there's even TV shows that show it sometimes. What do you do if you cannot carry a firearm to work, knowing that you work in a place that has a lot of mayhem?
I don't know. I mean, do you get to the point where you have metal detectors going inside of stores the way you start doing this to schools where you have metal detectors and stuff? I mean, I don't know what the answer to that is. It's like, I mean, is that where we're heading? Where
Yes.
it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like,
Yeah.
is that an answer to this? It's like where you have that kind of security where, like, I mean, it's not like Walmart doesn't have the money to start putting in metal detectors to start having armed security inside of their stores, the same way Target has the
Oh,
money to do this stuff.
yeah, but I mean, it would be costly though. I mean, if you put metal detectors in front of Walmart, then you have to have somebody operating the metal detector, and that person needs to be armed because just like at the airports, they have metal detectors. But if you go through and you show that you have metal on you, somebody has to be willing to put their lives on the line. Otherwise, you can just run through and start doing what you're doing. So they would have to literally have armed guards, at least a few of them, at every Walmart in America, plus or minus the cost of the detector and all of that stuff. I mean, do we think Walmart would spend that?
Do I think that they would? No. I mean, but do they have the money to do it? Absolutely, they do.
Well,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
let's face it. The Walmart family is one of the richest families in America.
Mhm.
It's I mean, it's not like they don't have the money to do it. It's whether they would want to do it. It's
Right.
gonna be interesting. I mean, you and I talked yesterday about mass shootings, and here we go again with another
Yeah.
one 24 hours later. It's like, where does this stop? It's
Well, what
it's
about the counter argument? What about the counter argument that maybe we need to limit guns in this country? Maybe we need to impose some bans and stop giving guns to everyone. I mean, how do you feel about gun laws, gun restrictions, and even to some degree gun bans?
well, I mean, we talked yesterday about the mental health issue, like that individual who just got done with,
Yeah,
shooting up the
yeah.
LBGTQ, I mean, that was clearly an individual he had on video. like
Yeah.
less than a year ago. I mean that could have been prevented. I mean, he got on YouTube live. I mean, he threatened to blowing up his house, and I mean, I
So
don't know.
so even with mental health and things like that, like I got 228 Chris in the comments saying 4 words in capital letters shall not be infringed. What do you do with that group of people that essentially are saying, I don't give a, I really don't give a shit how many people are taken out. I don't want my gun rights infringed upon. I mean, that's a large portion of the gun loving crowd that I don't care if you shoot people every day. I don't want you messing with my gun rights. How do you handle that?
Okay, I'm going to ask that person because Tim, you know that I'm a lifetime NRA member. It's like
Yes.
I'm going to ask somebody. It's like you have people, and I'm going to put this out point blank. You have people that don't have the mental capacity. Whether it's somebody like with Down syndrome, you don't weaponize somebody who don't have the mental capacity,
I,
right?
I didn't think about that, but Corky with a gun doesn't sound good. I get your
Right?
point. I get your
You
point.
don't do that. They're not allowed to have a gun. I'm sorry. It's like so this ideology of you know my gun rights can't be infringed. We already do it.
Yeah.
You have to
So,
have the
but how
mental
how do you?
capacity to be able to own a weapon.
I got folks in the audience even right now typing in caps, well regulated. They are pro gun. So how do you? The person with Down syndrome, for instance, they want to defend themselves. They have a right to defend themselves just like everybody else. How do you respond to that? That's what you're going to hear. Is that just because this person has a disability does not mean they should lose the right to defend themselves.
Well, but we do it now. We do it like we do it with people who have been into prison. We restrict their rights coming out of prison that they're not allowed to own guns. It's like there's certain things that we say, okay, you're not allowed to own a weapon any longer. You have a felony. It's like there's you just it goes back to what I said yesterday. It's like you can't get a tattoo until you're 18. You can't smoke cigarettes or drink until you're
But
21. It's like,
here's a problem though. Who do we let decide? Because in the comments, T Day is saying my brother has Down syndrome, yet he knows how to properly use a firearm. So the issue becomes, let's say we do what you suggested. If a person has Down syndrome or some kind of disability, they should not be given a firearm. Well, the first thing you're going to get from the guns crowd is the people checking folks with disabilities, they're a bunch of libtards. It's liberals that are doing this and saying folks cannot own guns, and you'll have people just like he is saying on television, clearly with Down syndrome, hitting targets at 200 yards away. So even if you do what you're suggesting, how
okay,
the counter?
but is
Go
he
ahead.
going out with his brother to a target range and is he allowing his brother? It's like, okay, it's like I've been shooting since I was 7 years old. My father was a competitive shooter. He used to do it in competitions. It's like I was allowed to shoot under guidance of my father shooting a rifle at 7 years old. That doesn't
Right.
mean I was able to own weapons.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's like you're telling me that somebody that doesn't have the mental capacity, you want them to go out and buy ARs with 1,000 rounds and walk around?
Yeah.
It's
All
like,
right.
where's the line here? It's
That's
like,
the that's the problem. Is the line has gotten incredibly blurry as the years have gone on. But Bionic Man, you know what I got to do?
I know.
Preach.
Hey,
Absolute, absolute. But I don't think we disagree on much here. I really don't. But good talk.
yeah, we need to set an age limit on this stuff.
We
It's
certainly don't.
going to be interesting to see how that individual at Walmart got the weapon, whether it was legal or not. I mean, if it comes out like it seems like every single time we have one of these issues, it's like this person comes out and they were, putting things on social media, and it's just like, you know, it's like there's red flags out there.
Yeah,
There needs to be red flag laws. There needs to be ways of getting weapons out of the hands of individuals that like come out and say that they're going to do
yeah.
things.
Well,
Sorry.
I got to move it on, but if you listen in, there is red flags on this guy as well. So I'll catch you on the next one, though.
Take care.
Okay. In regards to the assailant at Walmart, he was a team leader, he was a manager, and there are employees that I've heard on CNN, and I know my audience doesn't have a lot of tolerance for CNN, but I'll give you what I've heard so far because Fox News does not cover mass casualty events very much. They'll cover it a little bit, but because they are huge proponents of guns, you don't hear them being covered on Fox as much. So I tuned in to CNN. A couple of the employees were being interviewed. One of them stated that the manager who was doing the shooting took a shot at them and missed their head by a few inches. And that person said that they had been warned by other employees. This is the manager you need to watch out for because they're always involved with drama and things like that. So in regards to red flags, it's looking like just like with the LGBT assailant out in Colorado, this person did have some red flags. We'll see how much they develop. But yes, it does seem like there were red flags on this individual as well. I'm going to go back to the box. I won't bloviate too long, but the question we're asking today, and by the way, folks, tap the screen, get your boy up to 10,000 likes. I appreciate it. We try to bring some entertaining content and stay relevant. This is obviously no laughing matter, but I'm asking the question, should we just allow American employees to carry a firearm at work no matter where they're working? Like I said, you go to the hospital for labs, or you're laid up in bed for whatever illness you're dealing with, and you notice the nurse has a gun. There are plenty of mass casualty events that happen at hospitals. Church, the reverend is wearing a firearm. We've had plenty of churches that have dealt with this. And obviously Walmart seems to deal with it quite often. There are tons of videos of people committing mass casualty events or police having to take out assailants or just a typical fight in Walmart. Walmart seems to be to the point where it almost needs to have a ring around it and a referee in the middle of it. There's a lot of stuff that happens in Walmart. So do you think that Walmart employees, just as a measure of self-defense, should be allowed to carry a gun? We're talking about that. Going back to the box. Firefighter John. Thank you, caller. Nevertheless, welcome to the program. Good afternoon, John.
Good afternoon, sir.
I'm asking a question. Firearm, no matter where you work at, should you be allowed to just carry a firearm? The pilot on an aircraft, the stewardess walking down the aisle, everyone armed, because this can happen anywhere. Would you support that?
I believe that there's places that they definitely should not be allowed to carry, but there's a lot of places that they don't carry that I think they should be allowed, such as the school. I think the teachers in the schools should be able to carry. If they are legally trained, I am trained. I have a concealed carry card, and I carry. I carry in Walmart.
What about the school bus driver?
I think if they've been through the classes, I think they should be able to carry.
Crossing guard?
Again, I feel that if you're legal, why not? I mean,
so what about the Walmart? What about the Walmart employees? They're legal and they want to carry a firearm to work, stocking the shelves and packing.
I've been in Walmart a lot, and you will be surprised how many shoppers in there that are actually carrying.
I'm talking about shoppers. I'm talking about the employees.
The employees?
Yes.
That's a lot of people with guns. So, I mean,
that's the conversation.
That was tough. That was
now
tough.
You know, when you're walking out and that guy asks, "Do you mind if I check your receipts?" You know he's packing. I'm talking about the employees. You think they should be able to carry?
I don't know. I feel there should be some employees that are allowed to carry.
Why not
everyone? I think that it's kind of like a church. There's some there's a church right here in my hometown that has kind of like a church. There's there's some that are. There's a church right here in my hometown that has out in front of the sitting right there beside the front door that is armed.
Yeah, but
Not
here's the
everybody is.
point. Here's the problem I have. Here's the problem. You believe teachers who operate in schools that are completely locked down during the day should be able to carry,
Yes, I
but
do.
a Walmart employee whose doors are completely open and there's a hell of a lot more drama in Walmarts than schools, you're saying that some of them should not be able to carry. Make this make sense to me. I'm trying to figure this out.
I just feel that there should be some that can carry.
Why
Maybe
should
not.
what would be the disqualifying? Why should some not be able to carry?
Well, the laws for one. I mean, if you can legally carry, and they say it's all right for you to carry, I think you should be able to carry.
Okay, so in other words, you'd be okay with every Walmart employee, as
I
long
would,
as they are
well,
legal, carrying a firearm.
well, the only way to stop a man with a gun is with a gun. That's how I feel about it.
But what about trying to stop the guy from getting the gun in the first place? As opposed to having to shoot him, why not try to disarm him from day one?
That all goes back to the background check. And I understand that there is things that slip by. There is. You know there is. I know there is.
Yeah.
Everybody out there with a gun knows that there is.
Yeah, well, I guess the question I'm trying to ask is, we often hear if you ban guns, criminals will always be to get a gun, or they'll always be to get a gun on the street and things like that. Is it possible that maybe we should actually entertain a solution and stop throwing our hands in the air and just assuming everybody will always be able to get a gun and actually try to make that not a true statement? I mean, there are countries out there we know, like Japan, which was mentioned on here, where everybody cannot always get a gun. So why do we believe America is at a point where we can never be like Japan? I mean, are Americans just different from birth, where they just come out of the womb with a trigger finger? I mean, if you can stop it in Japan, why is it assumed that it's impossible to stop it here?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think you're good. I really don't believe that you would completely be able to stop people from getting guns. I really
Then how did
don't.
they do
I
it in
mean,
Japan?
there is too many. I don't know how they're doing it in Japan, but I'm just saying that there's too many people out on the streets. The criminals are going to get them.
I mean, I get the fact that there's, allegedly 450 million guns in the country. I get the fact that there's a lot of guns, but the mindset has to be, we start somewhere. I mean, hell, you go to Buffalo, New York, and they know eventually there's not going to be any snow on the ground. They don't look at the 6 feet they're working with now and say, well, there's going to be snow forever. There has to be a solution somewhere to, if not completely ban guns, to greatly limit it. But right now, with the mindset that, well, we can't do nothing about it, we're just going to keep dealing with these things forever.
Yeah, there's a lot that needs to be done. There's a lot that needs to be addressed, and I believe that there is, like the 30-round capacity magazines, the bump fire stocks that they did away with.
Do you support limiting magazine capacity? Like the guy in Ubalde just turned 18. Yeah. He went out and bought an AR and went out and bought as many rounds as he wanted. Do you believe there should be something done to stop that?
I think there should be.
Okay. So a completely law-abiding 18-year-old with no history of mental health, no history of crime, you still believe they should be stopped from obtaining a weapon?
I think that
I'm literally asking you the same question. I'm just explaining it, and you're changing your mind.
I think they need to be over the age of 18. I think they need to be at least 21.
Okay. All right, fair enough. I don't disagree with that.
An 18-year-old can buy a long gun, a rifle. An 18-year-old can buy a long gun, but they cannot buy a handgun.
Which might be why you're right about that. Go ahead. Say that again.
I don't understand why they can buy a pistol I mean, they can buy a rifle at 18, but they can't buy a pistol. It should be the same for the pistol and the rifle.
Yeah, I
My
don't know why
opinion.
there's a
It should
difference other
definitely
than
be the
maybe
same.
punching or something. I don't know why there's a difference as well. But listen, I gotta
And
move it on, Fire. Is this our first time talking?
huh?
This our first time talking?
It is. And I've
Okay, it was a
and I've
pleasure having
enjoyed
you
it.
on. Anytime you see me on, feel free to come on back through, man. I gotta
I'll do
move it
that,
on.
sir.
I
I
gotta part
appreciate
ways with you.
it. I see you.
Absolutely. Good talk. Getting in the comments should be 21 for both, says 3891, which is exactly what the firefighter just stated there. And by the way, thank you for your service to that previous caller. As far as I'm concerned, whether you're serving in the military or you're being a firefighter, both are equally dangerous. And there's no denying that firefighters lose their lives as well. So appreciate your service. Looking in the comments, 23 at a minimum. And what is the name there? What does that says? Something about titties. I'm always see titties, but I don't want to get too comical here because we're obviously talking about another mass casualty event. This one taking place in Virginia, where a manager, a team leader went in the break room, did a mag dump, which appears to be a mag dump on his own employees, his own subordinates, taking out 5 and then turning the weapon on himself. That happened today. And so the response, and I'm going to go right back to the box. I see there's several people in there. The question we're asking is, would America potentially be safer if you just gave everybody a weapon, even if they're at work? I keep using the example, you're in the hospital and the nurse is packing. You know, we're talking Walmart that seems to have no shortage of these type of events. Make sure all the employees can carry. Same thing about McDonald's. There are plenty of fast food incidents that you see on YouTube and social media. People reaching through the drive-thru to smack the girl serving drinks. People jumping across the aisle to beat the ass out of the person serving fries. Should the folks at Walmart who are over the age of 18 be able to carry a firearm to work? If you believe that a person should be able to defend themselves, you believe in the Second Amendment, why should it stop when a person is out working? A lot of these people are losing their lives while at work. It used to be where people did this stuff in a respectable manner. They got angry and they just went to the post office. They didn't do this everywhere, which is why it was called going postal. Now the folks done lost all self-respect for a casualty event, and they do it everywhere now, but it used to just be respectfully done at the post office. Going back to the box, LOL fam, 1, 2. LOL, good afternoon. I don't know, good afternoon, LOL. How you doing this afternoon? Okay, I don't know if you're on mute there. I'll give you a couple seconds, otherwise I got to move it on. If you think more guns solves it, look at Ubalde. Men with guns stood waiting till it was over. Well, in regards to what happened at Ubalde, we have to ask a separate question, which is, should law enforcement, people who have taken an oath to serve and protect, should they be held criminally accountable if they commit an act of cowardice, which is what happened at Ubalde and Parkland, Florida. Parkland, Florida was another example of a police officer cowering outside while he literally heard people being unalived, I guess we'd say, unalived inside. Risto Dogbone. I'm getting some new today. I don't know what happened with my last caller, but Risto, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Armed employees all over America. Would you support that?
Not for a minute.
So you believe folks at work should not have the right to defend themselves. How do you feel about the Second Amendment?
Personally, I think the Second Amendment is a joke.
Elaborate.
Okay. A lot of people would foam at the mouth or, get overheated when you talk about taking away their Second Amendment rights.
Right.
No, listen, I'm calling from Jamaica. So I'm talking to you from Jamaica. So I'm an observant. I live in the country first before I even
Do you guys in your country in Jamaica, do you have the right to own a firearm?
Yes, there is. You have to apply, and it takes a stringent process. There's a few legal owners of gun here. However, before let me just elaborate this first. I live in Jamaica, a country that is overran with guns, overran, and we don't manufacture a single firearm here, for minus the little homemade handguns that guys may make just so that is a few versus the amount of guns that is flooding into Jamaica. Now, my observation is war and weapons of war, weapons that can take life, all those are for profit. If you take away
Oh yeah.
all the millions of guns that is sold in America, a lot of people would be out of a job. Because I remember reading the news or watching the news years ago when they merely mentioned about closing down a gun manufacturing in Tennessee, and the whole town is like, man, this is all everybody. This is where that
Yeah.
employs everybody.
There is
So it is
there is a
their
lot
job.
of money. Yeah, there is a lot of money in promoting war. Nicolas Cage had a movie called Lord of War, and when they showed, yeah, there's a lot of money in selling weapons. But I mean, it ain't like we're selling something the world doesn't want, though. So you're saying that America should stop being an exporter of weapons?
What I'm saying is we should all come together, because there are some people in America who is thinking that, okay, it is too much, because you cannot change a person's mentality. You cannot change a person's rage, especially in a country that lives in, America is a country where if you don't like something, you hate it. If you don't, they don't have no normal feeling about anything that they cannot associate with. So it's always hate.
Mm.
That will produce a lot of these mental issues in America, where people just hate things they don't know or people they don't know or whatever, and goes around killing.
Now, you guys have a lot of gun deaths in Jamaica, though, right?
Plenty of guns, too much.
Yeah. But you guys are trying to defend that good ganja you got over there, I would take it, right?
Not really. It is not like even like that now.
What are they? What are they?
Basically,
What I mean, if you're not fighting over drugs, what's causing the battles over there? I mean, obviously in this country we're fighting over all types of shit. I mean, you don't have the folks going to the supermarket getting blasted like that, do you? Are there similar events happening there?
there is smaller similar events where you might be going at a party or maybe at a gathering, and there's someone in the crowd that he has problems with someone else. Now, most of the war and the violence here is so-called gang related, and most of it is because of people violent mentality. That is one thing that a lot of countries lose long time ago. Instead of promoting love, peace, cooperation, understanding, we promote the opposite of all of that.
Yeah.
And it is always violence. You look at the most popular game in America. What is it? Football?
Call
It
of
is a
Duty.
violent sport.
Call of Duty. I was playing it last night.
Yes. So a lot of people first option to a lot of solution is violence.
So would you support Jamaica? But let's say we did it from Jamaica. Would you support a nationwide gun ban similar to Japan?
Absolutely. Because
Okay, so
why
you
why
do
why
believe the solution is to get rid
if
of
you take
guns?
away the need, if first thing, to do that, the country would have to promote more harmony. And if you take away the need of needing security, because there are places that need security, a money institution that does business, they need security. So
Right.
guns in the hands of people who is responsible for those security is acceptable, but guns in everybody's hand, especially people walking around with a chip in their head that can goes off, maybe just splashing or stepping on their toes, or just a small traffic infraction. Look at road rage in America.
Yeah.
How it's easy for a person that owns gun to just lose their cool.
Yeah. And we have that
So
every day. But listen, Risto, I gotta move it on. This is our first time
Wonderful.
talking. Obviously, I do got to
Yes.
move it on, but you're always welcome back, man.
Mad respect for what you're trying to, dialogue that you're trying to come up with. Very good.
Thank you.
Blessings. And we
Appreciate
follow you.
that. It's an honor, man. Come on back through anytime. Oh, looking in the comments here, good people should have guns, but that just means we need proper gun laws. Well, not only do we need proper gun laws, some might argue, who the hell gets to decide what is a quote unquote good person? That's where the problem is that when we try to come up with what some would argue as common sense gun laws, you got folks who are for guns for everybody saying that the idiot doesn't have common sense. That's why you're having issues with people who even have domestic violence claims still being able to get firearms. Because the other side is going to say, well, what if the woman claiming domestic violence is making it up? Or what if the doctor saying the person has a mental health issue is not properly screening them? So there's always pushback. And as of now, the people pushing back have been more successful than the people pushing forward, which is why I stated at the beginning of the broadcast is that if you look at the gun laws in America over the last 10 to 20 years, they've been getting more and more and more relaxed. It is becoming more easier to get a firearm. Even in the right side of the aisle, where you hear people always mention in Chicago, you can get a gun in Chicago. You might not get it the same day. It might take a week or so, but if you are a law-abiding citizen in Chicago and you want a firearm, you can get one there. It's pretty damn easy to get a gun in 99.9% of America. There's a few towns here and there, but for the most part, if you live in a town and you want to have a firearm to protect yourself, you can get one. Just depends on what you're trying to get. Okay, maybe you can't get an AR, but you can get a shotgun or you can get a pistol. If you want something that uses gunpowder to send projectiles to your assailant, in most places in this country, you can get that. All right, going back to unapologetic black man, a friend of the program. Black man, I'm asking a simple question. Should people be able to carry guns everywhere they go, including wherever they work?
Hell no.
But what about defending yourself? If you do you believe a shopper going into Walmart to purchase some groceries or whatever, do you think they should be able to carry a gun as a shopper in Walmart?
Hell no. Not everyone. Hell no. No.
What would
Everyone
be
is incapable. That's just like me saying, that's just like us saying, should everybody be able to wear stilts at a gator farm? Everybody can't wear damn stilts. We
so
know
what
that
would be
police
the
are gonna
limitation?
pull up and not know who the mass shooter is.
Yeah.
If
So
everybody's
what's the
carrying
limitation?
guns, who's the bad guy?
But what's the limitation? You said not everybody. So what would make it so one shopper could carry and one couldn't? Or are you saying that no shopper should be allowed to carry a firearm?
I feel like gun responsibility and intense vetting, mental vetting for gun owners is much needed, and the NRA should pay for it. They have more than enough money to implement uh, stricter rules with any gun company.
Define intense. You said intense vetting because that definitely sounds like infringement. But give me your
I
definition
just
of what
mean
intense.
that I just mean that if you are a ordinary citizen and you want to own a gun, you're gonna have to go through similar training and mental evaluations like the Army do, like our military does. If we're putting 18-year-olds through rigorous training to hold a gun, because people don't understand in the Army, you have to go through a lot of training before you even handed a gun. They don't trust your ass yet. So saying Bob down the street with 11 vision, his ass can't even see, but he wants to own a damn gun. Like, no, come on, people. It's just
It's interesting that you would mention that because I have had. I mean, there's obviously been a lot of mass casualty events, and I've had these discussions with a lot of my beloved right wingers, and I have gotten into arguments because I mentioned common sense gun laws, such as if you cannot see. Even if you do not have limbs in this country, you still can own a firearm. And I've had people come on the show and defend why a blind person or somebody with no arms and legs should still be able to own a gun. So I don't know what do we do when you got folks that has that mindset that even if you are blind, you should not have your Second Amendment rights infringed upon. I've had a number of people defend that.
And it's weird because they ass don't even work with the NRA. These are just regular people that are obsessed with pieces of metal. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, let's be real. These are the same people and politicians who will try to combat gun laws with abortion bans. Like, okay, you're going to keep on unaliving our kids at a higher rate, then women are going to be, incubators for us then. It's
Yeah.
no coincidence that these laws are always aligned with each other. As the gun restrictions lessen, abortion bans rise. So I mean,
Mm.
we have people that think that they
Would you
combating
support?
these mass
Would you
shootings
support
with
gun?
abortion.
Would you
I'm sorry.
support a gun ban?
No, I wouldn't support. Me and my wife own eight. I'm a big 2A. I'm for 2A, but my wife has had training. We've had uh more than 20 something hours with training with our firearms, and everybody should have that. My We've had mental evaluations also, not making it seemed like we had to, but because of my injury from work, I had to have a mental evaluation, which I thought that was correct. That, like some Army vets, I feel like shouldn't own a gun that has PTSD and
Yeah.
traumatic syndrome. Certain people snap. And we have to, that's what I said, when it comes to gun responsibility, our politicians have to put in more intense mental vetting. We have to. That's the
Yeah,
only
but
way these shooters are going
that's
to
the
stop.
same question. I'm going to ask the same question we hear on everything. Who's going to pay for all that, though?
We can have the NRA pay for it, and mental health.
Ain't gonna
Mental
happen.
health will be. Well, we know that's not going to happen because we even
Right.
have 20 something% of liberal politicians who get money from the NRA, and therefore, less gun laws. So again, it's not about us, about our politicians. It's about our kids. And if people sit here and act like they care about kids, then they should make any and every law to protect our kids.
Okay. Well, you're mentioning the NRA, and I guess it's kind of a side question, but I have to. If you were in charge and it was up to you, how would you address the NRA? Because, I mean, fact of the matter is, the reason why it is so easy to get guns in this country is because of the work of the NRA. So anybody who is in favor of common sense gun laws, or are you talking about mental scrutiny for owning a weapon, or even gun bans outright for some of the far left people, you have to admit that the NRA is your biggest opponent, and they have been extremely successful in preventing all of that. So, how would you, if you were promoted to power, address the NRA, which is your biggest foe, on doing anything against gun violence?
I'm gonna blow your mind with this one, okay? I'll do just like Trump did. Trump had those people walking on eggshells at first.
I
If
think they,
everybody remembers, if
yeah,
everybody remembers, Trump was,
sometimes
yeah,
you got to
Trump.
fight with the NRA.
Yeah, and he was going to, and again, that's one thing about Trump that everybody was like, I don't like Trump, and I was like, well, let's see what he do about the NRA because he has them walking on eggshells right now. He was scaring a lot of his constituents with his rules on guns, and everybody knows Trump was really strict on guns. He even thought that lock the motherfucking people up before they even had the guns. Like say if somebody was
Yeah, I did a show on that where he said
yeah.
sometimes you can take the guns away first and
Yeah,
then get due process. And I
yeah,
did that because a lot of my MAGA folks believe that voting in liberals mean a loss of gun rights. And I played all these Trump clips of him talking about, limiting high capacity
yeah,
magazines. He obviously banned bump stocks. And they
yeah,
didn't even know that Trump, out of the last few presidents, has probably been the most strongest against gun rights. And they didn't even know that.
yeah.
But
And
yeah,
again, that's where a lot of people on the left was mad at me. Like, how can you agree with Trump? And I was like, I'm sorry, but I've never seen a president go this hard on the NRA. And he literally said the NRA. Usually politicians are terrified to say those initials. They'll say Black Lives Matter before they say NRA sucks. Shit.
I wish I had that clip to queue up. But yeah, he definitely said sometimes you got to fight against the NRA because that was right after the Mandalay Bay shooting in 2017,
Hmm.
and he was asked senators at the table, the other Republican senators, have you done anything? And they were like, well, no, sir, we haven't gotten around to it. He's like, because you're afraid of the NRA.
Yep.
And then he just started tearing into the
Tearing
NRA. So,
the whole table ass open. And again, I
yeah,
thought that it was going to go into a more easier solution, which would be even if they don't want to make healthcare universal, mental healthcare could be universal, and it will be cheaper than what we're paying for Medicare right now. So when people say like, "How are you going
yeah,
to pay for it?" It's actually cheaper. People, universal mental health care will be cheaper than the health care we're paying for right now. Open up a couple of resources center. The NRA should have their own social worker team, their own vetting team, their own. Like the NRA has more than enough money to implement better restrictions when it comes to even if they have to restrict companies. Because, like
yeah,
you said, I grew up in Jeffrey Manor. Do people know it's really a trip over the Vidoc and I can go get a gun from Indiana?
yeah. Same thing.
I'm
Yeah,
right by 103rd and
yeah,
Torrance. So I can
yeah,
go right over the bridge and get one.
yeah. It's that easy.
We
All
used
right,
to
I
we
got to
used to
move on.
we used to get our damn guns like our gas from Indiana. You remember Illinois? You just go over the bridge, get a gun and gas. That's what
It's
that's what we did. So
that
again,
easy.
we have to start caring about our kids. The same politicians that are saying ban abortions are agreeing with NRA. Common sense people. They saying we don't care about your kids. We care about pieces of metal. We got to do better, people.
Fair enough. Gotta move it on, black man. Good talk.
Uh,
All right. Looking in the comments, and that's a good point he's making, is that you are for protecting the sanctity of life, but I mean, guns are taking the lives of a lot of children. But I understand the counter argument. Folks are like, listen, I haven't done anything wrong with my gun. I've been a responsible gun owner. Why should I have to pay the price for other people acting a fool? Well, think about that next time you support stop and frisk. I've never been arrested in my life. Why should I be stopped and frisked? I don't know. But we all have to, as good citizens, understand that for the good of us all, sometimes we have to make sacrifices. So I'm asking that just simply from a standpoint of self-defense. Should we all be allowed to carry firearms anywhere and everywhere we go? It is not safe to go anywhere at this point where you can feel confident that a mass casualty event is not going to take place. I mean, like I mentioned before, they even went into a police station in Detroit. A guy went into a police station and started firing at officers. So if it can happen in a police station, obviously it's happened at a few churches, so there is no respect for religion, shopping at the supermarket, even if you are sick in a hospital and in an ill sort of way. People have come into hospitals and done it. Funerals. The person is dead and they will come and take out the family members. So there is nowhere safe that you can go in this country where mass casualty events do not happen. So I'm asking, because it can happen anywhere, should you be able to carry everywhere? Looking in the box, Shodan 86668. Good afternoon, Shodan. Wild Wild West. Why not? Don't trust you either. Yeah, the Wild Wild West is probably how it would be. Shodan, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Handsome. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Packing everywhere. Would you support it?
Negative.
I haven't had
Absolutely
one
not.
person, oddly enough, maybe I'm not getting a lot of right wingers on the show, but I haven't had a single person say, yeah, they support that. Packing everywhere. What about a shopper going into Walmart that wants to carry their firearm concealed? Should they be allowed?
Once again, this to me, in my opinion, this boils down to common sense. Who and that the common sense being who should have access to guns. So many people will contend, and I should say try to contend because it's a very weak contention at that.
Okay.
That that anybody can go and get a driver's license. Okay,
Right.
that's true. You can go in as long as you take your road test and you get your permit, and then you go and you take your road test. If you pass it, you got a license. Great. Okay. But the difference between car accidents, people dying in car accidents or injuries with cars, is that when a lot of people were, I'm talking about the days before there was any such thing as, DUIs, and, maybe like in the
No,
40s, 50s.
there's always been DUIs. They just didn't call
No,
it
no,
that.
no. I mean, when people were not, how should I say, they were a lot more liberal in terms of drinking and getting in the car and driving. Nobody really
Yeah,
thought much about it. They drink and
right.
go to a party and drink and get drunk and get in the car and kill themselves or kill somebody else. And at some point they started to wonder, well, why is this happening? So they started to do studies on it and figured out, well, a lot of these fatalities are caused by people who get in the car inebriated and
I
get into
get
an
your
accident and kill
point in
somebody.
trying to make, yeah, I get your point in trying to make gun ownership safer, but nevertheless, I get the same thing in the comments, which I'm getting right now. How do you respond to people who say driving is a privilege, owning a firearm is a constitutional right? Which means if it's a constitutional right, it's just like your right to freedom. Nobody has any right to screen it or require you earn it. It should be given to you essentially at birth. So the minute you turn 18, you can own a firearm. So how do you respond to that? Because you're talking about making driving safer, but the only way to
Right.
make gun ownership safer is to infringe on people's gun rights. Like callers have been saying, give them tests, give them mental evaluations. All. How do you deal with that?
Okay, well, it perhaps it could be looked upon as an infringement, but I would argue that that it's an infringement on my rights to get my head blown off by some nut who shouldn't have had a gun in the first place. That's a huge infringement on people's rights.
Yeah, but
to not
there's a law against that. If he blows your head off, he's going to prison. There are laws in the books for that.
Right, but him going to prison doesn't bring my head back. Okay, but if he didn't have a
Yeah, right.
gun, if he didn't have a gun in the first place, maybe I could still have my head.
Yeah, but okay, then I got to give you the second counter argument. And even though I lean left, I can always see the other side of other sides of most arguments. So I'm going to give you the second counter argument. If he didn't have a gun in the first place, maybe your head would be safe. Well, how do you respond to people who say he would have did it another way? He would have got a bomb. He would have used a knife. He would have ran you over with a car. What do you say to that?
I say that all of these are valid concerns. However, um, all of these things in concert, can be looked upon and said, okay, well, look at how many people you can take out with a high capacity rifle versus how many people you can take out with a knife or a car.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean,
Yeah.
you can take out a bunch of people with a car if it's a crowd of people on New Year's Eve gathered for for a New Year's Eve celebration. Obviously,
Yeah, you
that's
talking
a
about
concern.
Daryl? Yeah, Daryl Brooks, who just got sentenced to a bunch of consecutive life terms, did exactly that in Waukesha, Wisconsin. And then, of course, we got a knife event over in Idaho
Right.
that seems to be making the news. So it can be done another way. So I guess the question I would ask you is, if you successfully get what you're talking about with guns, whether it's limitations on magazines or mental health checks or whatever, does it expand to knives and cars and all this other stuff?
I would argue no. I mean, again, it has to be, you have to use a certain amount of common sense and logic. Okay. I use a knife and fork to eat my dinner every night. Okay. I know, I mean, nobody else knows me here. You don't know me really. We're just conversing here, but I
Right.
can tell you that I am of sound mind. Okay. I am capable of thinking rationally and logic. I use a knife and fork to eat. What's to stop me or anyone from flipping out one day and taking a knife to your family while you're sitting at the dinner table?
Yeah.
Okay. So, it gets to a point where, okay, it gets absurd. It's like, okay, we're going to ban all the guns and we're going to ban all the knives and forks, and we're going to, and the people that are allowed to have these things, we're going to have them have a mental evaluation before they can eat with a knife and fork to make sure that they're psychologically capable of doing it. It gets a little bit ridiculous.
Okay, well let me take it this way. You yourself have stated you are of sound mind. You would pass the background check, I'm assuming, to own a firearm if you don't already own it. Should you be allowed as a shopper to carry your firearm into a Walmart?
If properly vetted, I think so. But someone did bring up an interesting and a very valid contention that in the unfortunate event that someone does that there is an active shooter incident, and there are shoppers in the store that have guns, or let's say the majority of the shoppers in that particular store have guns. When the police show up, how do they know who's the good guy and who's the bad guy?
That
You
is a
know,
problem. That
and
is a
and
problem. I
that's a big
brought that up
problem.
before. That is a problem. But let me keep on this same path. So you're saying if properly vetted and you're responsible, no criminal record, no mental history, you as a shopper should be able to carry a firearm. What about the employee? Properly vetted, no criminal background, no mental health issue. What about the employees at Walmart, stocking the shelves, no criminal background? He wants to carry a firearm. Because if he's in there in a threat as a shopper, any threat you face while shopping in Walmart, that employee could face the same threat. So what about the employees that have been properly vetted? Should they be able to carry?
I would make the concession that they should be able to, but with the added caveat of them required, since they're working there, they would be required to go for additional training. That I guess the average person who's only has a firearm for their personal protection would carry. If you're in a store and
Well,
now
the
you're taking on
Walmart guy.
the added.
Wait a minute. The Walmart guy is also only carrying for personal protection. Just because he's stocking shelves, if somebody's shooting at your ass, he ain't gonna turn into Superman. He's only carrying that for himself too.
Right, right. Yeah, I understand. I understand what you're saying. I mean, it it is a very big and difficult problem to solve, mainly because of the ideology here in this country. But the other side of it is we cannot continue to just throw up our hands, as you said before. Oh, well, criminals are going to be able to get guns no matter what laws you put on the books. Okay, so that means we sit back and we do nothing.
Yeah.
And then people contend also that it's expensive to come up with these laws and do this vetting and everything. Who's going to pay for it? Well, I think the cost of doing nothing is much greater than it would be if we properly vetted people. Okay,
100%
the cost of
agree.
life
100%
is obviously you can't replace that.
100% agree. All right, well, I do got to part ways with you, but if you tune in, I'm gonna tell you right after this how I believe they could make a huge dent in what's going on in this country. But I appreciate you coming through, man.
No problem. It's always my pleasure.
Good
Have a
talk.
good
Good
one.
talk. So before I go back to the box, here is my spiel on how I believe we could actually overtake the notion that there's 450 million guns, you can't do anything about it, criminals will always be able to get guns. So you guys can tell me in the comments or in the box, which I'll go right back to after this. First of all, you have to turn off the spigot of new guns coming into the country, new guns being produced. There are some guns coming over the border internationally, but the overwhelming majority of guns in this country were produced by this country. We make guns. We are the biggest exporter of weapons. So most folks in this country are not using foreign weapons. They're using shit that was produced here. So the first thing is the Second Amendment protects your right to own a firearm. It does not say anything about the sale. So the first thing I would suggest targeting if you're going to do something as wild as this is stop the spigot of new guns entering the pile. So now you have a static pile or a number where you got to deal with that doesn't just keep expanding, which is why buybacks and all this other shit don't work because they're still making new weapons. So if you start going after gun stores and things like that where it becomes more difficult to get new guns, now you have a number where you have to deal with. Second thing is, once you stop the spigot of new guns from pouring in, now stuff like buybacks and things like that will have a little bit more validity to them, such as pawn shops. You hear folks say all the time, I don't care how much they offer, I'm not going to give up my ability to protect myself. Okay, well, you get to keep your gun. But after you pass away, is your wife going to still want that gun? What if your family is having financial troubles and they're offering buybacks? The pawn shops in this country are a perfect example of what happens when you offer money for guns. Pawn shops everywhere get plenty of firearms. So the idea that a buyback won't work, pawn shops showed that is not true. Pawn shops have no problem with people bringing guns in for money. The only issue is, like I said, new guns are constantly pouring in, so you don't see any effect of the buyback. However, the buybacks are taking tons of guns off the street. Same thing with the police. The police are also taking tons of guns off the street. Every day, hundreds of weapons are being taken from criminals. Last but not least is the financial aspect. If you start making it so that new firearms are not coming in, and the number of guns is starting to get less. I'm not talking about going from 450 million to zero. I'm talking about going from 450 million to 400 million. Barack Obama's term showed what can happen when people even think that guns are going to be hard to find. The price of ARs tripled. The price of ammunition shot up. If that happens, that makes it so that petty criminals will start having a harder time getting guns, which is what a lot of guns are used for illegally in this country, are petty crimes. The 12-year-old or 15-year-old that wants to get a gun and do something real quick is not going to be able to get it as easy if the gun is going for $1,000. And it's not just going to be legal gun owners, legal guns that are going to shoot up in price. The same thing's going to happen to the black market. Everybody's going to start holding on to their weapons and charging more to sell them. That is another issue that's going to make guns harder to find, harder to get your hands on, because everybody's holding on to their shit because it's becoming more valuable as less and less guns are on the street. And that means the buybacks go up in price. You're going to tell me, listen, I got 6 guns. I'm never going to give up my right to defend myself. Everybody has their price. As those buyback rates go up, okay, maybe I can get by with 4 guns instead of 6. Maybe I can get by with 2. They start offering you enough money and you're having financial troubles, you're taking guns off the street. It'll never get to zero, folks. Not in our lifetimes. But as the generations go on, it will certainly be less and less firearms in this country. And that will translate to fewer crimes. There are plenty of countries that do not have firearms that still have crimes, but people are not getting shot up all over the damn place. The stabbings, there will always be a different way to take a life. But the thing that you will never find, if you try to find another way to take a life, one thing you will never find is the same success rate. Any trauma surgeon will tell you it's a hell of a lot easier to save somebody's life that's been stabbed than shot. And people who use other weapons cannot commit certain types of crimes. Try committing a drive-by without a firearm. Try taking the life of a law enforcement officer without a firearm. That stuff gets hard to do, hard as hell. Try seeing 5 or 6 gang rivals at a basketball court and taking them all out without a firearm. Certain crimes become almost impossible to do. So we still will have loss of life, just like countries without firearms. But it will go down just like countries without firearms. Going back to the box, ginger bearded. Good afternoon, Texan. How are you?
Hey, Tim, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good.
Hey, let me ask you something on the
Sure.
same subject, but completely separate. How do you feel about DWI checkpoints? Okay, you know we got the silly season coming up, and do you want to get hung up in a DWI checkpoint because you haven't been drinking, but they're looking for a possible suspect?
Well, as a person who has literally never had even so much as a wine cooler or beer in my entire life,
Holy
I've
cow!
been through many. Yeah, I've never had a single alcoholic beverage. I've been through many DWI checkpoints.
That's impressive, man. But
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't want to have any unnecessary dealing with law enforcement at all. I mean, just like you're saying, they can make mistakes, all of that. No, to me, a DWI checkpoint is very similar to stop and frisk. I would rather they not have them, but
exactly.
I guess I don't have a huge problem with it. I'm not a fan of it, but then again, I'm not to the point where I say they should get rid of all DWI checkpoints.
Well, they're actually unconstitutional here in Texas.
Yeah, I know.
You know, and because it's right along the lines of stop and frisk.
Yeah.
So, hey, so when we talk about, when we're talking about guns, and you know me, man, I'm a 2A guy. So when we talk about common sense, and we talk about mental health, what do you envision on that?
Well, we would start out with red flags, somebody who often jokes about taking lives, or a student in school that's drawing pictures of the shit, or a guy who's, going from woman to woman, beating the hell out of all of them. I mean, I'm talking about the more obvious red flags,
So
but
like
I would,
like the Colorado shooter that they had red
yeah,
flags on, they did nothing
yeah.
with.
Yeah, the guy who threatened to blow up
Right?
his whole family. Yeah,
Yeah.
stuff like that would be the really big, bright red flags. But
Right?
I would contend that there are smaller red flags as well. Like a guy gets terminated from his job, and he has choice words for the management, or "f all of y'all," or "all of y'all should go to hell." I mean, I think even lower levels there are red flags.
Well, I mean, okay, so are you saying then that there should be a degree of that that says that that not only hate and prejudice and rage, those should all be kind of red flags? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, let me just say this, and I'll let you continue. But in my opinion, I don't think red flag laws are going to make a dent. I actually have said this on many of my lives, just like with vehicles in this country, as a condition with every citizen having the ability to drive a car if they pass a driving test, you're going to have people getting ran over, and you're going to have accidents. It's all a matter of statistics and numbers. If you put so many cars on the road, you're going to have a certain percentage of them that are going to be involved in accidents. If you increase the number of cars on the road, the percentage of accidents is going to go up. It's the same with the guns. If you hand a whole population firearms, a certain percentage of human beings are going to be defective, mentally ill, criminal, and commit crimes. If you increase the amount of people that have guns, you are going to increase the amount of people who use them in, nefarious manners. So you can do red flag laws and all of this stuff, but as long as people can get guns, this stuff is going to keep happening.
Okay, and I got an 18-year-old son that I refuse to give a car to, and I'm doing everything I can to block him from getting a license because
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a danger to society. To give him
Damn.
a 4,000-pound weapon of mass destruction, okay, because he is impulsive and irresponsible.
Let me,
Okay,
let me interrupt you and
and
ask you this. If you feel that way about him owning a car, do you believe because he's 18, he can get a gun now too. Do you believe his gun rights should be restricted?
absolutely, and we are working toward that specifically. Okay,
Okay, so
now
dad is a snitch. Dad is a snitch then.
I don't care if I'm a snitch.
Okay,
I just
fair
know
enough.
how the kid is. Okay.
Okay,
Now, and
fair
I
enough.
carry every day. I train. 3 weeks ago, I was running through a tactical kill house with Navy SEALs because I paid for additional training. Okay. And I think I told you
Okay,
2 years ago, I was before a grand jury because I drew to defend a civilian and a police officer from another assailant.
okay.
Owning a firearm is a huge responsibility, and I think some people understand that, a lot of gun owners understand that. But then you have to understand that if you take the gun away from the legal gun owner, the illegal the illegal guns are still going to be out there. And you're not going to solve that anytime soon. So if we try to start restricting those guns, hell, Barack Obama, Fast and Furious, the government exposed and gave out guns for the sole purpose of trying to track down criminals, and they were used in crimes.
Yeah. So, based on what I'm hearing from you, you're taking the approach that we need to arm law-abiding citizens because essentially there's nothing we can do to stop criminals from getting guns. You're pretty much throwing your hands in the air when it comes to preventing guns from falling in the hands of criminals. You're basically saying there's nothing that can be done.
Let me ask you something. Would you lay down your life for your brother?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you would lay down your life for another person you've never met in your life
Well,
just
you said
because you feel
brother.
like it's the right
I
thing to
thought you
do?
meant biological. I thought you meant biological brother. You said
No, I'm
brother.
talking about a civilian, someone you've never known before. Are you willing to lay down your life for someone else?
In most cases, no.
Okay, and that's some of the difference between you and I,
Okay.
because as former military, and I have a military family. I've had parents in the military. I've had children in the military. That's what we did. We put our lives on the line for our way of life. Okay, for
Okay.
the American way of life. So That's what we do. And I think that's some of the biggest misunderstanding that you and I would have from your more liberal point of view versus my more conservative point of view is
Mhm.
I went out there and I said, you know what? I'm going to do this. I know I could die, but I'm willing to
Okay.
do that for my way of life and for my family and for my country.
Well, and I appreciate your service, by the way. I don't want to underestimate that, but I will say this: if society in America was more loaded with people like you, my gun views might change. However, these mass casualty events are happening in places where people can freely carry guns, and in some cases, they even have firearms. There's not enough people that are willing to lay their lives down. If you want to go out and commit a mass casualty event, the chances of you being successful if you have a firearm are probably well over 99%. So people are able to do this stuff. So I don't want to be in a situation where we're depending on good people with guns to defend, victims, because
Okay.
that's just not happening.
Okay. So let's say no firearms involved.
Hmm.
Let's say a crowbar. All right.
Okay.
Someone's breaking into your house. How
Right.
long do you think it'll be before the police respond to your house with someone breaking in with a crowbar who's intent on beating the living crap out of you and maybe robbing you, maybe raping your wife or your daughter or your girlfriend or your dog? I don't know, whatever. But how long do you
Well,
think
I
it'll
mean,
be before the
I get
police
your
come there?
point. Yeah, I get your point. When seconds matter, the police are minutes away. I mean, it obviously depends on where you live in the country and things. I mean, if in where I live at, the police will probably be there in 2 or 3 minutes. But everybody doesn't live in an urban area, so I
No,
get your point.
it'll
But
be
I will
20
say
minutes
this.
before they're to me.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just unacceptable. Where I can walk to the police station in 20 minutes. But I will say this though, in regards to people finding other ways to kill you as opposed to using a firearm, you're talking about crowbars and things like that. Well, shit, I can run. Now I can fight back a little bit more. A 12-year-old could break in my. I'm 6'6", 300 pounds. A 12-year-old with a firearm could come in my house and take me out. He's not going to do that with a crowbar. Probably not even with a knife. But when
What
you
was
put a
it?
firearm in somebody's hands, anybody can do that.
Okay, what was it? 25 sheriff's deputies cadets were taken out by a car. Maybe
Yeah,
it was. Maybe the number is less,
in Los
and maybe it
Angeles.
was
Yeah,
not
in Los
nefarious.
Angeles.
Maybe it
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
But we've also seen where it's been, Thanksgiving parades or Christmas parades where a car has been used as a weapon, just the same. The
Mhm.
fact is, and I'm going to go right back to this: you cannot undo hate, prejudice, and rage.
True,
And that's where I
but
go back to
true.
it's that mental health crisis. Okay, and you look at the Uvalde shooter. Okay, that went into that school. There were red flags long before that should have prevented it. Now I own ARs. I own a lot of high capacity magazines. I own a lot of ammunition. I'm not going to be afraid to say any of that. But I'm not a shooter.
But
We
let me say this in regards to you pointing out folks using other ways, like the racist guy Daryl Brooks, who ran over all those white folks at the Waukesha parade.
Yeah.
He used a vehicle to run over, and I think he took the lives of 6 people and he injured numerous others. This is somebody, as you're suggesting, that's saying if you ban guns, they'll find another way.
Yep.
Imagine Daryl Brooks, the same guy who used the car, who clearly did not have a firearm. Imagine if he had your AR with your magazines. If he stopped the car at the beginning of the parade, and actually stepped outside of the car and used your firearms. You think his numbers would be higher than 6? You can get out the way of that car. Yeah, you're going to hear people screaming. He's going to get some people, but it's a hell of a lot easier to get out of the way of an evil person with a car than somebody who's firing an AR with unlimited rounds. The point I'm trying to make is, yeah, you can use a different method to take lives, but you'll never achieve the same success rate as you do with a firearm. That's why they're choosing firearms, because nothing else
Okay. So
kills better than a gun.
okay, that's not a fair comparison though, because if you're looking at, let's go back and let's look at the Colorado shooter a couple of days ago. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
one of those, um, actually, the person who stopped him ended up
Mm-hmm.
using his army training to not only get that rifle away from that person, but then beat him with his own rifle.
Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. You want to know why this kind of shit doesn't happen in Israel or places like that? Because basically everybody spends a couple of years in the military, and they get to learn, how to defend themselves and defend others. Not to mention the fact that they learn a little bit more about being a part of their country, and being countrymen, and what is important, and your country is important. So
Yeah.
you want to start stopping some of this crap? Force people to do a couple of years in the military.
I
Let
don't
them
know, but
let them do a couple of years and learn firearms proficiency. Let them learn a little
but
bit
here's
about
the
being American, and what that really means.
here's why. Well, first of all, when you start talking about American, you're going to get all types of things about the history. But the issue I have is we're doing all of this stuff to make it so that everybody can have firearms when we don't want to address the elephant in the room, which is everybody has firearms. So as opposed to addressing the fact that too many people have guns, well, let's train everybody military style, or as you said, let's make sure everybody can carry guns. But at the end of the day, the proliferation of guns everywhere is the problem.
Let me
It
ask
is
you
the
something.
problem.
Okay, hey Tim, you and I are in a Walmart together,
Mm-hmm.
and a shooter breaks out. Would you trust me?
If I don't know you, I'm getting the hell away from you. I'm trying to
Okay,
get out of Walmart.
but if you okay, absolutely, and I want you out of Walmart. But if you see me charging in, you see me charging toward. I'm charging toward that threat while I'm trying to push you out of the way, shield you from it, and tell you get the hell out of here. Then do you not trust me?
I would be happy to have you on my side if you're doing that. And that's what I said earlier in our conversation. There's not enough of you out there. How many mass casualty events do you hear about that did not involve a single person trying to be a hero? That's most of them. What happened in the Colorado LGBT case, that's very rare where you have somebody that is shooting people up and one of the patrons actually charges at the guy and tries to do something about it. In most
Well,
cases,
yep.
people are running.
And you brought up something earlier that I heard you say. We're bringing up, maybe we should charge those that are in charge of protecting, say Uvalde, charge them with cowardice. We
Yeah.
can't train, we can't train strength. Okay, we can to a certain extent, but that takes constant training. You have to know. I went in there and I was having to in this training house a few weeks ago. We had a 1 inch dot that we had to determine if it was friendly or foe, and
Mm.
it may be that one was behind the other, and we have to take out the foe without hurting the friendly. And but a lot of people don't do that. But at the same time, the more that we would encourage that, okay, because you're not going to get rid of the guns. Plain and simple. The illegal guns are
I
not going to
see
go away.
you and I totally disagree there. I don't think it's that you're not going to get rid of the guns. I think is you're not going to get rid of the guns if you never even give it an effort. I agree with you. If you do nothing, nothing's going to work. But I don't believe it's impossible. I believe the mindset that it's almost like where I come from on the south side of Chicago. I'm never going to be nothing, so I might as well sell drugs to feed my family. If you have that loser mindset, that's exactly what you're going to end up. And that's the
Well,
way
that's
our
a
country
separate,
has it.
but that's a separate issue because now you're
But
talking.
that's the same mindset. That's the same mindset is that it's hopeless. So let's do nothing about it.
So that complicates the issue because yes, okay, I'll agree with you. It's the same mindset, but that's where it
Yeah.
actually complicates the issue, where we can't just get rid of the drugs, or I'm sorry, we can't just get rid of the drugs. We can't just get rid of the firearms. Okay, those things just don't go away. All right,
Yeah.
and so we have to think critically and think outside the box. How do we solve this? Hey, could I get a tax break because I go and I take firearms training? I take tactical
I
training.
know.
I mean,
I get your
I mean,
I don't
something
know.
to
To
think
me,
about. You don't have to have an answer today.
You
But
could be breeding. You could be breeding even better killers doing it. You're turning a regular mass casualty guy into the Terminator because now all of a sudden the people who got these weapons with all of this training turns into the. Have you ever seen the Norwich bank robbery where the guy showed up with bulletproof trenches on and they had all those rounds over in
I know,
California?
I know, but
Yeah,
we could
you're
also be making
creating
a Timothy
Terminators.
McVeigh. We could also be making a Timothy McVeigh. Okay,
Yeah.
but how many Timothy McVeighs have we had? Okay,
Well,
versus
when you got one that takes out 160 people at once, you don't need many of those. I mean, he took out 160 people simultaneously.
well, that's part of my point, and
Yeah.
part of your point too, right? Nothing is perfect, but again, I could go rent a U-Haul with a bunch of ammonium nitrate and blow up a building and take out a whole
Yeah,
bunch of
but
people, mass casualty
yeah,
event.
but
So
that's the same argument I keep making is if you find a different way to do it, the chances of you being successful are going to be less. It's just in most cases, people are choosing firearms because firearms make killing easier than anything else you will choose. That's why they keep going back to firearms and they're not picking these
no,
alternative methods.
no, you know why they choose firearms? It's
Give
impersonal.
me your
It's not personal.
more so than a knife.
Oh, a knife is very personal because you've got to get
Yeah,
up close. You use a firearm, you're doing it from a distance. A rifle is one of the best choices. Let me tell you something. Shooting a deer from 200 yards versus coming up on a deer that's wounded but not dead is very different. Okay?
yeah,
So it's wounded and you have to finish it. That is completely different when it's looking at you in your eyes versus doing
yeah.
it from 200 yards. Okay? It's impersonal. And the closer you get a rifle, you can go out yards, many, many, many yards. A handgun, it gets a lot more personal. A knife is incredibly personal.
Yeah, and
That's
they're
in my gradient.
choosing. Yeah, and over again they keep choosing firearms. But I gotta move it on, Ginger. You know what I gotta do, man. I appreciate you coming through. We have to have this. We have to finish this up another time.
All right, brother. Take
Good
care.
talk, though. Good talk. Great for straight white. Wait a minute. Say Jobo says great for straight white Christian dudes. They love Uncle Tom's though. I get this in every broadcast. I always say that the purpose of the MAGA hats you may see behind me is to let my MAGA friends know that this is a MAGA friendly program. I personally believe, even though I am a liberal, MAGA does not get a fair play with the media, does not get a fair shake. And I want folks to know that even though you come to a liberal program, you will always be able to speak free of the worry of censorship being banned or blocked for your opinions. Whether you agree with me or not doesn't mean a damn thing here. Doesn't mean I am a right winger. It just means I have no problem allowing folks on the right to speak because their opinions are just as valuable as anyone else's. And I do this because I want to demonstrate in my little small corner of social media, if we can have civilized dialogue, they can do this shit in Washington. They're just not trying. That is the purpose of the MAGA hat. It is my light in the middle of the night to let MAGA know they're welcome here. It's nothing to do with being an Uncle Tom, an Uncle Ruckus, or a sellout. And unfortunately, a lot of people who look like me in the mirror see the hat and fling around insults. I get it on every program. You're welcome. Feel free to come in the box and let me know that. I'll give you plenty of time to state your point. Looking at the comments. Only vote for Trump. Okay, fair enough. Most liberals are snowflakes. If your opinion is different, it makes them sensitive. I don't, something, I disagree that most liberals are snowflakes. I can say things that the right disagrees with, such as when we're talking about Second Amendment issues. We talk about abortion. We can talk about Christianity. We can talk about racism. We can talk about the Confederate flag. And I can create snowflakes all over the right. I know what the trigger points are. Both sides have snowflakes. It's not that it's a left-wing thing. It's just right now, the way the left is speaking out, whether it's the LGBT community, some cases Black Lives Matter, and a lot of left-wing politicians, it looks like all the snowflakes are coming from the left. But I can tell you about Murphy Brown going on television showing that a woman can do it without having a man or a husband at home, and the right going nuts, Dan Quell. I can show you when Ellen DeGeneres had a sitcom and she came out as gay and the right wanted to take her completely off of television. That's also cancel culture. That is also snowflakes. And Donald Trump, for instance, you could be in middle America in high school and tweet out something about Trump. And if he gets a hold of it, he's going to go ballistic. If you want to talk about snowflakes, Donald Trump does not let anything roll off his back. So there's snowflakes on both sides. It's not a left-wing thing. It happens on both sides. What do you think about your boy's son laptop? You're talking about Hunter Biden? I believe where there's smoke, there's fire. I don't believe Hunter Biden is innocent of all of that shit. But then again, I don't believe Trump is innocent. I don't believe Hillary Clinton is either. I just believe people at their level do not go to jail. Trump, Biden, they have all sorts of favors and things like that. You think let me talk about, in regards to Hunter Biden, I'll go right back to the box in regards to our actual topic, but in regards to Hunter Biden, if your son was Hunter Biden, or if you were Hunter Biden and your dad was Joe, would you go to jail? If you used your dad's position and influence to get paid, you didn't abuse any children, you didn't murder anybody, you just used the fact that your dad had a prominent position and found a way to make money, would your dad let you go to jail for the rest of his life? Would you let your son, if your son used your job and your influence to get paid, even if it was illegal, and you could pardon him, and he was facing football years in prison, you're going to tell me you let your son go to jail? Hunter Biden is not going to jail. I'm not saying Hunter Biden is innocent. I'm just saying use your noggin and understand that no one, if they were in Biden's position, would let their son go to jail. He's not going to jail. I'm not saying he's innocent. I'm saying he's not going to jail. For any of you guys sitting around thinking about Hunter Biden in orange jumpsuits, not going to happen. It's never going to happen. And I would tell you the same thing if this was Hillary Clinton, or if it was Donald Trump and Don Jr. was doing this shit. Trump wouldn't let his kids go to jail. No one would. No one is going to say, well, I am so high and mighty that even though I could sign my kid out with the stroke of a pen, I think he deserves to do 15 years in prison. Nobody's going to do that shit. Nobody with a decent relationship with their child is going to do it. Your dad wouldn't do it for you, and you wouldn't let your kid go to jail. So good luck with that. Going to the box. Kiss my grits. I haven't talked to her. Good evening or good afternoon. Kiss my grits. Welcome back to the program.
Hey, Helen, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Talking about firearms, we just had another mass casualty event, Virginia Walmart. The manager decided to do a mag dump on his employees.
So he went
I'm asking
postal.
Yeah, exactly. The new version of going postal was going everywhere now. Used to be you go to the bathroom and take a piss. Now they pissing everywhere. So the question I'm asking, I mean, that's what's happening. You can't go anywhere
Right?
now. Even in the
You
parking
can't.
lot of a Walmart, you might get taken out. So I'm asking, should people just be able to carry firearms everywhere, even while employed, carry a gun in your
I think
job,
so
whatever?
because it was a manager that had the pew pew, right?
Yeah. Yep. Brought it to
Okay.
work.
So he turned on his own staff that was eating in the staff room, right? Now, if
Apparently,
one
he
of
thought a
them
15.
or if they were armed, do you think all of them would have been unalived?
That's a good question. It's hard to say because
All of them would have been unalived?
that's a good question. It's hard to say because
All of them would have been unalived?
that's a good question. It's hard to say because when you got a firearm, particularly a semi-automatic like a Glock or something like that, you can
Well,
pop
all of them
off
semi.
round. Yeah,
All
well,
of
you can
them are
have
semi. Come on now.
well, you could have a something like that. You can
Well,
pop
all of them
off
semi.
round. Yeah,
All
well,
of
you
them
can have
are
a
semi. Come on now.
well, you could have a revolver. But what I'm saying is when you got a semi-automatic handgun,
That's
17
a
rounds or
revolver
whatever.
is still a semi. It's still one pull, one shoot.
Okay,
So
all right,
you look at
fair
it,
enough.
it's still semi. Okay.
Okay, fair enough. But what I'm saying is you can fire so many rounds so quickly that even if people are armed, by the time their mind processes what's going on and they get their gun out, they may have already swallowed some rounds. So 5 people in a close break room like what he did, and you got to jump, you get the pull first, and none of them are expecting it. I think you can still get those numbers.
You might, but there's going to be someone that's always quicker if they practiced enough.
You think Walmart employees are going to the range and practicing like that?
Okay,
They're making like
so I
$10 an
drive
hour.
all the time. Look! I
But
drive all the time. I go to the range.
yeah, but you realize how much Walmart employees are making? You know how much money ammunition and stuff costs? They're not spending money like that at the range doing all that practicing
Why not? Why
because they
not?
can't
I
afford
mean,
it.
okay, you don't specifically have to go to the range. You could go in your backyard if you live in the country.
Okay, I don't know what city in Virginia this happened in, but I live in an area where if you go in your backyard and pull out a firearm, the police are going to come in your backyard and take your firearm.
Okay,
So,
true that, true that. I mean, if you're living on top over people or on top of people, and people's living on top of you, it might be hard to do that to go into the country to
yeah,
do that. But
yeah, yeah.
majority of the people,
Anything goes. Yeah, anything goes
go
in the
ahead.
country. You can go in your backyard and kill a squirrel. You can't do that in urban areas or even in the suburbs.
Okay, so but most people when they live in the suburbs, they just still go to the range. You can't tell me nobody is going to the range.
No,
Even
I
people
don't.
that
I
works
don't.
for Walmart, you can't tell me no one is going to the range.
Yeah, but you're talking 5 people in the break room. The chances, I don't care what Walmart you go to in this country. If you go pick out the average 5 employees, probably almost every time you pick out 5 random employees, none of them are going to fit the description you're talking about. They're just, most people are not spending that kind of time at the range.
Okay, but even still, it's their right to protect themselves.
I agree with that.
Is it not?
So you, so
Okay,
you do believe, so you do believe Walmart employees should be able to carry at work.
well, hell, I mean, yeah, because of the how their manager went postal.
Yeah. What about a nurse at a hospital? You think she should be able to carry?
Same. Well, it doesn't matter if it's a nurse or a patient. Okay,
Patients too.
they do still go in there with pew pews. Okay, okay. So yes, you still got to defend yourself.
So I'm laying in the bed, hanging around waiting for my prostate exam or something, and the nurse just turns over.
Doctor's
You said the
office.
patient. You said the patient. So what
Well,
if you're
you said
spending the night in the
nurses.
hospital? Yeah.
Okay, now you're talking about. Okay, wait, stop. You're talking two different places. One's a
Okay.
hospital, one's a doctor's office. Okay, so okay, even still, doctor's office. If a patient gets bad news and he didn't like what he heard from his doctor, and he decides to come in and to do things, unimaginable things. Okay, may I add? Wouldn't
Yeah.
you want to defend yourself from that? I mean, let's be honest.
You make a good point because I've been talking to a lot of my beloved MAGA folks during the COVID era, and I know how they feel about what the doctors say you should do on COVID. So yeah, I guess the doctors probably should be packing because there's a lot of angry MAGA. So I guess you're right because they don't, doctors say wear a mask. Oh my God, no, you don't have to wear a mask if you're going to shoot me.
You
So
know what?
I, yeah, I guess I get your point.
My
Say
doctor
that again.
carries. My doctor carries.
Wow.
I
So
don't have a problem with it. But he also
so
knows I carry too.
that's crazy. But you're talking about the country though, too, I guess. I don't listen, if you're talking about people who go to the range regularly and got all this training, I guess I would be more on your side. But fact of the matter country where the NRA continues to fight against mandatory
See,
training. I've said that before.
I never followed the NRA, and I am a two A supporter. I have my concealed weapons. I practice all the time, and I never followed the NRA. The only thing I think that the NRA did good was to put pew pews into black people's hands, which is good because I think all people needs the right to have their weapons and to protect themselves from
Right.
whoever. Okay, I'm an advocate for people of all
Well, I
race.
guess what I'm asking you is this: you have training, sound like you have substantial firearm training,
Yes,
but you know it was not mandatory. You know all of your training was
right.
optional. The point I'm saying is that a lot of us folks on the left are saying, well, if you're
Well,
going to force through the Second Amendment where
it
everybody
was
can carry a gun,
mandatory.
you should
It was
mandate. But how do you
mandatory.
feel about mandating? Wait a minute, wait a minute. How do you feel about mandatory training,
No,
requiring gun owners to
no,
have mandatory
no,
training?
because then that does go against them. But it was mandatory for me to get it when I got my concealed weapons. But I chose to do it. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
So
So let
so
me phrase
so
it this way.
because I
Let me
chose to
let me
get my
phrase it this
concealed
way.
weapons, I chose to go through the classes that I had to go through to get my concealed. Also, it better educated me on how to do certain things certain ways and stuff like that with the weapon I had at that time.
Let me give you the scenario. I just turned 18 and I don't have any history of mental health. I don't have any criminal history. I got enough money to buy an AR, and I've made it clear I don't give a damn about training. I just want to have this. They got them on Call of Duty. I want to be able to purchase a gun. Training be damn. If I want to get training,
Okay.
I'll decide. I'll decide when I'm in my 20s. But right now, I want to be able to get a gun, and I'm not interested in training. Should I be able to
Okay.
get it?
Hang tight. I'm going to do a Harris. Okay. Kids 18 to 25 is stupid. Okay, they lack that mental capacity of using rational thought.
Okay.
Most of them do. Now, however, I do deal with 18 to whatever because I deal with military guys. Okay.
So what you're saying?
Um so these kids that I deal with, they're going into the military. The kids that are wanting to get the pew pews at 18, I think they have to get that training. They
Mandatory.
don't. Yes,
Okay, so you do support mandatory training for younger gun owners.
for younger kids. Yes.
18 to what age? Just 18 only? Stop at 19, 18 to, I mean, is there a span?
Okay. Well, the brain fully stops growing at 25. So from 18 to 25 at least.
That's good shit. I'll tell you something, even though you're right with guns and I lean left, that's common sense where folks would meet in the middle. I think that something like that, yeah, I would certainly agree with that. And that's something that if we had this type of talk in Washington and not on a tiny ass social media channel, we could probably get something done because I think a lot of folks, even on the right, I've had some folks on the program that, are MAGA, they Republicans, and they've said the same thing because I say all the time, whether it's the violence in urban areas like Chicago and St. Louis, or we're talking mass casualty events like at schools and what just happened in Walmart, most of the people doing this stuff are under 25. I don't know
Right.
how old the Walmart guy was, but the LGBT guy, the Buffalo shooter, the Parkland shooter, all of these, most of the people doing this stuff are
And they
under
should go
25.
through and they should go through anger management class. I
But
think
what
that will
about
help too.
I'm gonna give you a phrase that you tell me, what do you think about it though? Shall not be infringed, because what you and I are
I
discussing is
understand, and
infringement.
trust me, I fully believe in that shall not be infringed.
You're
However,
infringing. You're infringing.
yes, but however, there is so much unuseless unalivings, that things has got to change. I mean, people could still get it after 25 and they still could practice on their own and stuff like that. And kids that practice while growing up with their family um, under it, teaching them and stuff like that. See, there's a difference between when you're used to it and grew up around it versus, oh well, I'm 18, I could get it anyway.
Right.
So there is a difference between that because kids, when they grew up around it, they know the severity of what a pew pew does. So they won't do the stupid shit that when kids turn 18, oh, I could get one and let's be stupid, you
So
know.
how do you respond? Okay, I'm gonna give you a comment in the comment section. Roscoe Jenkins, I mean, apparently is a gun owner, says this lady does not speak for us.
I don't give a
How would you?
shit. I don't speak for nobody. I speak for myself. And if you don't like it, you can kiss my ass. There we go.
All right, girl, kiss my grits. I like it. I gotta move it on. But listen, in regards to what you said, though, a gun owner with some common sense. I think when they talk about common sense gun ownership, what you and I are discussing is what they're talking about. I appreciate
Now,
you coming through.
should we put gun safety and stuff back in the schools? Yes, I think we should.
Yeah, some would argue that would be probably more valuable than teaching LGBT stuff. So I agree with that. I agree. Now that guns are pretty much, permeated throughout society, yeah, I would not be opposed to teaching children about firearms because they're going to find out either by the
Exactly.
teacher
So
or on the street. They're going to find out
exactly. So
anyway.
you might
So
as well let them do it in a safe environment.
yeah. And show them some pictures of heads being blown off. I agree with that. I actually do. Just like with venereal, just when I went to
Holy
school
shit,
for
we're
health class,
agreeing.
yeah, when I went to school for health class, they showed you pictures. Like when I got into high school, they showed you pictures of dicks with mumps on them and things to let you know if you're not sexually responsible. Yeah, if you're not sexually responsible, this could
Right.
happen to you. They showed us
Exactly.
pictures of that.
Yep.
So yeah, I would agree. I would show some people that have been shot the hell up. I gotta move it on, no kiss. Appreciate you
All
coming
right,
through.
hon. Thank you.
Good
You
talk.
have a good evening
You
or
too.
good
You too.
day.
You too. All right. Okay, that's stupid. They don't care that it's they don't care that it's against the law. Why would they care if you make that law? And see what you're saying. I can't see the name there, TD Hamilton or something. What you're saying is what we're talking about that I believe is the problem. It's to throw your hands in the air defense. Criminals are not going to follow the law. There'll always be guns. They'll find another way. So essentially, you're countering with let's do nothing. Let's continue maintaining the status quo. Or maybe we offer people a little bit more thoughts and prayers when they die this time. Maybe we talk about it. None of that stuff is working. I don't care if you think it's an impossible road to go down. We're not going to survive if we stay here. Maybe we need to walk down that road and see what's at the end of it, or at least attempt to do it. But constantly saying that nothing will work guarantees that we'll have this conversation again and again and again. I mean, the LGBT incident happened this weekend, and it's Wednesday. It is only Wednesday, and we've had another one. And these are only the ones you've heard about. I think it has to be a certain amount before the media even tells you about it anymore. You go take out two of your neighbors and the news guy, oh, that ain't shit. It's supposed to be snowing tomorrow. Go to the weather. He only killed two people. It's gotten to that point where you got to murder enough people to even qualify to be on the news. So, yeah, the throw your hand needs to go out the window. We need to actually sit down and say, no matter how to go out the window, we need how hard something is, we're going to at least attempt it. Whatever that solution may be. I'm not saying the solution has to be to ban guns. Whatever solution we're going with, you have to actually come up with a plan and say we're going to tackle it no matter how difficult it might be. And if it doesn't work, then we move to something else. But doing nothing it's never going to work. Doing nothing, and we're literally doing nothing and hoping for the best. How much more of this shit you need to see? I mean, really, how many more people need to perish before you acknowledge that doing nothing guarantees more of the same? What do they say? You continue doing what you always did, you're going to continue getting what you always got. And in this case, the frequency of it seems to be increasing. It's happening faster now. The space between one, like in the case of the LGBT incident, they're not even in the ground yet. And now we're working on another one. They're not even in the ground yet. So, and the same thing with the Buffalo mass casualty event. I think that one happened where the guy went to the supermarket in Buffalo on the same weekend as another one that happened in Ohio. They literally happened on the same weekend. They're happening that freaking quick. Anyway, I do have to unfortunately end the live. I am on a lunch break. I appreciate the fact that you guys are rolling with your boy. 18,000 likes or 19. Would have been nice if I had got 25. A little bit of lazy thumbs in here. MAGA is always welcome. Patriots as well. A few liberals came through. Always a pleasure having you guys on. But at the end of the day, I don't know if pretending like nothing will work is going to be the solution. And the thoughts and prayers, for lack of a better word, is bullshit. I mean, whoever you're praying to, they're not listening. It just seems apparent that they're not listening. So whoever you're praying to, that's not working. And when you say thoughts, if this is what you've thought about is coming up to is more of it, then don't even offer me your thoughts. And your prayers are useless. It's your boy Tim, the handsome liberal. Catch you guys tonight at 7 p.m. Central, assuming another event hasn't taken place. As always, I make the solemn promise I do not ban, block, or censor anyone for their comments. The fact that you may disagree with the host never means a damn thing. So come on over. I'll give you plenty of time in the box, as I always say, to state your point, and we'll talk it out. I gotta go. Catch you guys later.